Hi, everyone. Thanks for jumping on today. We're going to give folks a couple more minutes to join, and then we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for jumping on today. We're going to give folks about 2 more minutes to hop on here, and then we'll get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and kick things off here. So, thanks, everyone, for joining today. I'm excited to welcome you to our conversation on BE disclosure. The race is on, conquering your BE disclosure blind spots. I'm Lauren Gibbons. I'm part of our marketing team here at Label Insight. And on behalf of Anna, Hannah, and myself, and all of us here at Label Insight, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you spending this time with us and hope you get a lot out of this conversation. Just a few housekeeping notes here before we get going. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive an email with a link to view that recording within 24 hours of the webinar ending today. Since we do have a large group on, you're an attendee in listen only mode. So we'll use that Q&A feature. It's in the bottom middle panel of your Zoom screen for any questions. So feel free to pop your question in there at any point. We'll be monitoring that Q&A panel throughout the conversation today. And then we've saved some time at the end to answer those questions. And if we're not able to get to your question, we'll be sure to reply back to you with an email, again, within 24 hours. If you do have a technical issue, use the raise hand feature at the bottom middle panel, and then one of us will chat you directly to help you resolve that issue. Finally, we'd love to hear from you after the webinar, so feel free at any point to email marketing@labelinsight.com, and we'll make sure your question or concern gets answered. So we want to welcome you to our CPG and retail community. You're in really good company here. We've got marketing and regulatory and e-commerce professionals from some of the brightest and most innovative brands, national brands, emerging brands, and retail private label brands are all represented here today. We're really excited to host you, and feel free to to ask any questions. It's likely you're not the only one that has that question. So at any point, just pop your question in that Q&A panel. Your presenters today are Anna Thibault and Hannah Polk. Hannah is the Senior Solutions Consultant for Product Data Management here at Label Insight. She's a former chemist with a BS in chemistry from the University of Missouri. Anna's a personal care product expert, and she's got licenses in cosmetology and aesthetics. She has 8 years of experience as a product specialist in a retail cosmetics environment. And Hannah is a licensed and registered dietitian here in Chicago. In her current role as a solutions consultant at Label Insight, she supports retailers by crafting and applying attribution to products both in-store and online. Hannah supports retailers by crafting and applying attribution to products in-store and online. And she's passionate about healthy, transparent, and better for you products. She aims to help really optimize the consumer shopping experience. And these two are really subject matter experts in CPG, so I'm excited for you to hear this conversation. So with that, Anna, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hannah and I are really excited to be here with you all today. Today, we'll be covering what exactly brands and private label manufacturers need to know about BE disclosure, some regulatory hurdles and even opportunities associated with the regulation. We'll cover what digital compliance looks like and how you can use a digital platform like Smart Label to future-proof your brand for future regulations. But first, we're going to kick things off with a quick poll for our audience just to establish a baseline understanding of what BE compliance looks like for all of you. So Lauren, if we could just get that poll kicked off. Awesome. So the question really is just what is your plan for complying with the BE regulation? Options being we're using that SMS text message option, we're using digital disclosure, we're going with an on-package text or image, or the option D, we're unsure of what makes sense for us. There's really no right and wrong answers here. I talked to both Label Insight's valued customers as well as customer prospects who are interested in learning more about our solution. And when I ask folks this question, I get a wide variety of answers from people who know exactly what they're doing for disclosure all the way through to people who have kind of no idea what their disclosure plan is or even if their products are regulated. So again, there's no wrong answers. Give everyone just a few more seconds to answer the question here. All right, so it looks like 61% of you say you're going with an on-package text or image, and then a pretty large chunk, 33% say you're unsure of what makes sense for you. I'm going to assume that's why you're here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later in the webinar. Hannah, is that the response that you expected?
Yeah, I think it aligns pretty well.
Yeah. Great. I mean, it's good to know, where our audience is in their disclosure journey.
Yeah, I'm glad that a lot of people are eager to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, the industry has been talking about bioengineering disclosure pretty much nonstop since the bill was passed by Congress in 2016. And that deadline is right around the corner with the mandatory compliance date beginning on January 1st of 2022. With this compliance date inching closer and closer, it's definitely now or never time for brands to finalize that disclosure strategy and start to get all of those products labeled in accordance with whatever disclosure they've decided on. I really still regularly talk to brands that are struggling to comply with the standard in time for that January deadline. And I know a lot of the industry was hoping that the USDA would issue an extension of that deadline due to COVID. I know our CPG industry has had to reallocate a lot of resources to keep up with consumer demand for at-home food options, and BE compliance likely fell to the back burner for a lot of people. But so far, there's no indication that the USDA is planning on extending the deadline. So it's definitely time to get our disclosure options squared away. Hannah, as a dietitian, I know that the standard has been on your radar for a long time. Do you mind giving us a high-level overview of what BE disclosure means?
Yeah, absolutely. So the BE food disclosure standard was actually created by the Agricultural Marketing Service, or AMS arm of the USDA, and defines bioengineered foods as containing genetic material that has been modified through in vitro rDNA techniques, which are not otherwise found in nature or through conventional breeding. And really determining whether or not a food or food ingredient contains genetically modified material can really vary depending on their refinement process that's used to produce the food. So with this new standard, manufacturers of branded or private label products, as well as importers who sell food products in the US, will be required to label foods that fit this description as bioengineered.
It's such an interesting regulatory landscape out there in the CPG space today. Obviously, BE disclosure is top of mind because of that short deadline coming up, but there are multiple other recent disclosure regulations for manufacturers to be aware of. For example, the FASTER Act for sesame labeling was just finalized. The California Cleaning Products Right to Know Act was implemented by brands not all that long ago. And then recently we've seen requests for comment from the FDA for developing a new healthy icon for food products. And I feel like all these various transparency regulations really just point to a new wave of regulatory oversight in CPG labeling and advanced disclosure requirements. I just talked to a major CPG company the other day who was asking how Label Insight could help them identify products that contain sesame to help them get ahead of this new requirement, the FASTER Act. So I know everyone is eager to learn a little bit about that as well. Hannah, you're the expert here. Can you give us a quick overview of what the FASTER Act is?
Yes. So FASTER stands for the Food Allergy Safety, Treatment, Education, and Research Act. And sesame has really been a hot topic because more than 1.5 million people are allergic to sesame. Yet up until now, it hasn't been required to be included on any product labels. And one of really the main controversies or issues is that sesame is often found in non-specific or vague ingredients like natural flavors or natural spices, which really adds to that layer of difficulty when a consumer is reviewing a product label for their sesame allergy. So the FASTER Act is really the first step in changing all of this and making sesame that ninth major allergen in the US. And the bill was just recently signed by President Biden on April 23rd. So really what exactly this means for CPGs is that sesame is going to be required to be labeled on all packaged foods beginning January 1st, 2023. And this also means that food allergy research has to be given a greater priority by the federal government with the ultimate goal of developing more effective treatments and ultimately a cure for food allergies. So that's another great side of the bill. And this marks the first time since 2004 that a new allergen has been added to the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act. However, although this is the only change to allergen labeling since 2004, other acts and bills have really been disrupting manufacturers since then, such as that California Cleaning Products Right to Know Act, Anna, that you mentioned earlier. So Anna is actually has a background in chemistry as well as ingredient formulation, so she can certainly speak more insights onto that act.
For sure, Hannah. Helping our customers figure out compliance with the bill was super challenging because of the intense level of detail that was required. But working with some of the industry's most influential regulatory professionals was also one of the highlights of my time here at Label Insight. So just to give our food-focused folks a high-level overview of this act, at a federal level, household cleaning products are not required to disclose their full ingredient list on package. But in 2017, the state of California passed Senate Bill 258, which required common household cleaning products sold in the state of California to disclose their intentionally added ingredients on package, as well as fragrance allergens. And they had to disclose a ton of additional ingredient information online, such as non-functional additives, chemical abstract service numbers for ingredients, if that ingredient is present on specified lists of chemicals of concern, safety data sheets, and on and on and on. It was really an unprecedented level of transparency for products in that space. And I know a lot of brands I worked with at that time really struggled to get into compliance on their whole portfolio. I know it was particularly challenging as many of the brands that I spoke to purchased their fragrance ingredients from a fragrance house and didn't actually have that granular data they needed to disclose their fragrance information. And I think this is really similar to some of the challenges the brands I talked to are facing with BE disclosure today.
Yeah, and hopefully we can help make compliance with this bioengineering standard a little easier for our customers. I mean, obviously the majority of food and beverage products are regulated under this standard, but Label Insights Derived Attribution really makes it possible for us to talk more specifically about the categories most at risk for containing these BE ingredients. So I'll get into more detail about our derived attribution a little bit later, but using this, we were able to determine that the bakery aisle comes in at the most at-risk category with 82% of products containing at least one BE ingredient. And then it's followed by snacks, cookies, and candy is up next with about 70% of products containing at least one ingredient on that BE list. And lastly, followed by frozen foods, baking goods, condiments, and so on.
Overall, 53% of food and beverage products contain at least one ingredient from the BE list, and that's pretty high considering we've included some non-applicable categories like bottled water and organic products in that assessment. Also, 32% of dietary supplements contain an ingredient that is on that BE list.
Wow. Yeah. And prior to this webinar, I didn't even know that supplements were regulated under this BE standard.
Yeah, I think that's still a little known fact. Also, while most alcohol products are exempt from the standard, there are some alcohol products that are regulated under the standard. It's wines with less than 7% alcohol by volume and beers brewed without malted barley and hops. So there's some potential blind spots there for sure.
That's super interesting. And really, it's so critical right now that brands get this right. However, because the BE standard is technically considered a marketing standard rather than a health and safety standard, the USDA has limited authority to really enforce the regulation and will not be able to issue recalls or monetary fines. But CPG should still take this very seriously, for the USDA has indicated that they will do thorough investigations and make these investigation findings publicly available. So this could certainly lead to litigations by upset customers or even competitors.
Yeah, you really can't underestimate the impact that public opinion has on a brand. You know, consumers have access to unprecedented amounts of information on social media, and they're really not shy about boycotting a brand that doesn't meet the mark for them.
Absolutely, so true. And it's so critical to build consumer confidence in order to really maintain your market share. And transparency is not just like a buzzword, it's truly an expectation now. In fact, 81% of shoppers say transparency is important or extremely important when it comes to their buying decisions. And we're really finding transparency is not only important to CPGs, but also the retailers we work with. So I often find that the retailers that I work with use our derived attribution to provide an added level of product transparency on their product detail pages or through shelf tags and faceted search. So again, we find transparency can really be what makes or breaks the shopper experience. So if customers find out that a brand has not been transparent about something like bioengineering, for example, it's very likely that the consumer might lose faith in the word of the brand and switch to a new brand. And the CPG industry is just flooded with emerging food and beverage brands that are willing to fill the customer needs if the established brands aren't willing to step up to the plate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know our customers, private label manufacturers, and CPG brands that we've talked to have faced significant challenges when it comes to compliance. So Anna, what insights do you have into some of the challenges that they're facing?
Yeah. There are a number of challenges that brands face today. For example, I was just in a conversation with a regulatory manager from one of our large manufacturer companies who was telling me that they use multiple ingredient suppliers to make their products and that they don't actually have access to the BE status of the ingredients that they're purchasing today. To be able to accurately know if their products contain bioengineering information, they have to actually petition their ingredient suppliers for that information. I've attended a fair number of industry working sessions on this issue, and I've heard a lot of companies say that it's been quite challenging to obtain this information from their suppliers, particularly if that ingredient supplier is international and they don't necessarily understand all of the context behind this US-based regulation. On top of that, many food manufacturers are accustomed to being regulated by the FDA, but this standard is actually coming out of the USDA, and some manufacturers didn't even know that the standard applied to them until just recently. Finally, there were some very important details about analytical testing methods and refinement processes that were just released this past July. So July 2020, not all that long ago. It included information about standards for the disclosure of highly refined ingredients, which I know was previously a big question mark for some of the brands that I talked to. This gives brands less than a year to make any changes that may have come up when these clarifying details were released. And truly, all information that was just released is very important because the standard only allows for statements of contains or derived from. It doesn't allow for a may contain bioengineering statement, which means that manufacturers have to be very specific and have to know with absolute certainty what the BE status of their product is. When you have a portfolio of potentially thousands of products, maintaining and sourcing that information can be a really big job.
Absolutely. And yes, again, BE is not really the only risk here for CPGs and private label manufacturers. According to the Label Insight database, 160,000 food products may contain hidden sources of sesame. So I mentioned earlier that sesame is often hidden under vague ingredients like natural flavors or natural spices. So with this new regulation, these manufacturers and suppliers of these vague ingredients are going to need to provide full transparency about the sourcing of these ingredients to really comply with this new regulation by the FDA. So as we were preparing for the webinar, one thing I wondered about was consumer awareness and opinion of bioengineered foods. And one of Label Insight's solutions actually pairs consumer search data with top retail channels like Amazon, Walmart, and Target with our attribution data to give brands insights into what consumers are searching for in specific categories. So what products in the market qualify for these attributes of consumer interest. And this platform really allowed me to dig into the consumer search data to find that consumers are really not searching for the terms bioengineered or BE specifically when they're looking for products online. But that being said, consumers are showing a lot of interest in the absence of these ingredients by searching for things like non-GMO or organic. On our top 3 retail channels, we see that on average 5,000 monthly searches for non-GMO food and beverage products and over 2 million monthly searches for organic products. In fact, the top searched categories are non-GMO popcorn, non-GMO sweeteners and stevia, cornstarch, flour, and infant formula.
Consumers are showing an interest in non-GMO products with their credit cards as well. Sales of non-GMO bakery products are up 25% from 2019 to 2020, and up an additional 11% in the first 13 weeks of 2021 versus that same time period last year. So even if you can attribute some of that 25% lift that happened between 2019 and 2020 to the COVID pandemic, you really can't ignore that we saw an additional 11% lift the first 13 weeks of this year. So, it's really just to say a growing portion of consumers are seeking out products without BE ingredients. But I think there's still an opportunity for manufacturers to educate consumers on their use of bioengineered ingredients and their perspective on bioengineering. In fact, I think that consumer education could be a part of any compliance strategy. I feel like it's a good time to probably jump in and tell our audience a little bit about their compliance options.
Yes, and this is far from a one-size-fits-all regulation. Manufacturers have the option of an on-package text, an on-package symbol, a text message prompt, or digital disclosure. And many of the brands that we talk to are opting for this digital disclosure option as a more flexible option for compliance. And we'll spend some time talking about the benefits of digital disclosure today. So with digital disclosure, a brand does not have to state the presence of bioengineered ingredients directly on their package. They can utilize a QR code instead. And the QR code will need to have the statement "scan here for more food information" directly below it. So within one scan, the consumer will be able to find the information about the bioengineered ingredients contained in that product.
Having a digital disclosure option is something we've seen a few different regulations recently beyond bioengineering. For example, that California cleaning product right to know bill we talked about earlier in the session. Part of that bill's requirements was to disclose specific information online. We know that more transparency regulations are bound to be in our near future, and it looks like the trend is to include a digital disclosure option. So setting yourself up for success on a digital compliance platform and transparency initiative today can help future-proof your brand for whatever comes next.
Yeah, and I know that digital disclosure can be a far more cost-effective solution than having to redesign and reprint all of your new labels. So leading brands report repackaging investment costs millions of dollars and hundreds of man hours. In addition, the USDA estimates between $92 and $260 million in printing costs alone for food manufacturers.
Yikes, that is a big investment. And then what happens if you switch to a new ingredient supplier and it changes the BE status of your product? You'd have to repackage again. Digital disclosure is an easily maintainable way to avoid costly and time-consuming label updates. If the BE status of your product ever changed, you could make that update online in seconds.
Yes, also you can use digital disclosure platform as a way to really differentiate your brand. I think that we're all aware that in 2020 and 2021, consumers have been shopping online more than ever before and getting more comfortable with the QR code technology. And in recent consumer surveys, it was discovered that 72% of consumers have scanned a QR code in the past month, and 58% would like to see more QR code usage in the near future. So as consumers really start to get, more and more comfortable with this online shopping experience, they'll start relying more on these digital formats as a reliable and highly accessible source of product information. So a digital disclosure platform allows you to really provide your consumers with far more information than what's available on a product label. You can also use that unlimited digital space to speak directly to your consumers and really build out that trust and loyalty by providing just absolutely full transparency in that consumer education.
It's probably about time that we talk about what Label Insight can offer to help with compliance. And it all starts with a quick overview of the Smart Label Initiative. Smart Label is an industry initiative facilitated by the Consumer Brands Association in partnership with a group of consumer companies and retailers. It is a digital version of product labels and gives manufacturers an industry consistent and flexible platform to include product information far beyond what is available on your physical label. So if you think about things like in-depth ingredient descriptions for your consumers, sustainability stories far beyond what could fit on your product packaging, allergen information beyond what's required to be on your label, things like voluntary fragrance disclosure and ingredient transparency initiatives, and more. Smart Label is really a fantastic option for digital disclosure, including bioengineered disclosure, and it gives consumers that product information they need to make decisions about products when they're shopping online and they don't have that physical package in their hand. Label Insight is a top solution provider of Smart Label pages, and our customers like to work with us because we create best-in-class pages and we make it easy to publish and easy to maintain. Label Insight also has a turnkey end-to-end Smart Label solution that starts with convenient QR codes for your products and ends with a Smart Label page for each. Let's take a look at how a few of our CPG and retail partners have worked with Label Insight to bring their digital bioengineering information to life on Smart Label.
So this is a live consumer-facing Smart Label page for a product that includes bioengineered ingredients from our great customer Bimbo. It includes the bioengineered logo in the header of the Smart Label page. So if a consumer wants more information, they can find a description of what really this logo means within that features and benefits tab. And because this disclosure is digital, there's ample space and opportunity to really educate consumers on what exactly bioengineering means and what this new disclosure means. So here is a second example, this time from one of our retail partners, Albertsons. And it is important to remember that private label manufacturers are included in this regulation, and Albertsons has chosen to use Smart Label with Label Insight as their flexible disclosure platform.
Another service that Label Insight offers in conjunction with our Smart Label product is an intermediate menu page. Oftentimes I hear from brands that their marketing team is hesitant to give up their QR codes. They use their currently existing QR codes for social media links and coupons, promotional videos, on and on and on. But the intermediate menu page has really been designed to answer that and to make your QR code a multifunctional QR code. Once a consumer scans that QR code, they're taken to this intermediate landing page. The page has that bioengineering logo right there in the header. So it is compliant with the regulation. But underneath that disclosure, you can see a variety of links to the Smart Label page for this product, to the branded website for this product, to sustainability information, coupons, and so on. The menu is entirely customizable, and this design has been approved by the Agricultural Marketing Service as a digital compliance option. So you can be sure that you're in compliance with this solution. And creating Smart Label pages with Label Insight is super fast and easy. We have 2 flexible methods for creating Smart Label pages for our customers. The first is to upload your package flats directly to the Label Insight platform. We extract all of the information from those package flats and use your images as a single source of truth to create beautiful Smart Label pages for you. Our second option is our partnership with One World Sync. If you have great GDSN data in the One World Sync platform, we can actually pull that data directly from One World Sync and create Smart Label pages on that. We have a system where you can verify your pages before they get published. You can also enrich your pages with some of that information we were talking about that makes Smart Labels so powerful. So obviously BE disclosure, but also things like ingredient descriptions, sustainability statements, additional marketing claims. The options are really just endless. Then we can publish your pages to live, and Label Insight tracks and measures consumer touch points on your Smart Label pages over time. So you can just sit back and wait for those metrics to roll in.
Another great benefit we offer our consumers is the ability to leverage our derived attribution as really a turnkey solution for discovering which products in your portfolio contain suspected bioengineered ingredients. So when a product is added to the Label Insights database, we scrape the label for all product information, including the nutrition fact panel and the ingredient statement. And we have a team of subject matter experts that includes dietitians, different regulatory experts, experts like Anna, who's a chemist, and they help create these automated rules that really scan each ingredient statement for the absence or the presence of ingredients in order to fuel what we call our derived attribution. And leveraging derived attributes gives both the CPGs and the retailers that we work with the ability to really provide full product transparency. So in this case, the USDA has defined a specific list of bioengineered foods, including canola, corn, soybeans, squash, and more. And Label Insights is able to use derived attribute technology to really automatically detect products that contain ingredients on this BE list, as well as ingredients derived from potential BE crops. So keep in mind that the USDA acknowledges that new bioengineered crops are continuing to be developed, and this is not necessarily an exhaustive list. However, our customers have found it very helpful in helping them really find that jumping off point for compliance. And our derived attribution can also help our customers identify which products may or may not contain sesame ingredients for that regulation as well.
I know this has been a really great starting point for our customers, and it's truly a service that no one else can offer. I did want to just hop back one little slide, if I can, because my fault, I skipped over this one quickly, but I just wanted to touch base also on the fact that Label Insight has an end-to-end Smart Label service. So basically everything that you need from compliance, from adding QR codes for your package to customizing that intermediate menu experience, all the way through to creating a Smart Label page and helping you to make sure that your bioengineering information is available on that Smart Label page. So we're just a one-stop shop for getting you into compliance on Smart Label. And we know that many of you are likely still working to get your products into compliance with the bioengineering standard, and we at Label Insight would like to help. That's why we've curated a special bundle package for today's webinar participants, which includes everything you need for digital disclosure. It includes Smart Label pages for your products, a curated list of all of your products that need BE review, and 6 months of free access to that intermediate menu product for all of your products. On top of that, you get the support of one of our subject matter experts like myself or like Hannah to help you along the way.
Yeah, and this is really, such a great solution that can really help our CPGs and private label manufacturers just comply with this regulation, as well as, again, really future-proof your brand for any future regulations that may come, and allow digital disclosure for compliance. So Lauren, do you want to speak a little bit how CPGs can take full advantage of this opportunity?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Hannah. So to take advantage of this, what's really a turnkey bundle, all you need to do is email us at marketing@labelinsight.com. We'll get you set up with one of our subject matter experts, like Hannah and Anna mentioned, who will really be there with you every step of the way to walk you through the process. We do have limited capacity to help brands in time for that January 1st, 2022 deadline. So to ensure you can take full advantage of the bundle and our solutions consultants' time, we want to get you kicked off as soon as possible. So as soon as you know you want to take advantage of this, email us, again, marketing@labelinsight.com. With that, we're going to move on to Q&A. So thanks, Hannah and Anna. Great conversation. We've had a number of questions pop up throughout the session. If you haven't put your question in yet, feel free to go ahead and do that. Anna, a couple of QR questions have come in, so I'll bundle those together. First one's about real estate. What if my label is really small? How can I use QR codes and digital disclosure with that limited package real estate?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So there are no exemptions for very small labels. You will have to still label your products with bioengineering information. However, there is an amended style guide for very small packaging. The disclosure regulation is a little accommodating for this. So you can use an existing URL or phone number that's already on your package. Also, QR codes can be made pretty small. We recommend a minimum size of 1 inch by 1 inch. That's not to say that they cannot be smaller, but 1 inch by 1 inch is sort of what we recommend for that optimum scannability by consumers. Generally it's possible to find that small amount of real estate on your package. And with all the flexibility that QR codes allow you, we like to think it's absolutely worth that space investment. Hannah, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and I would just add that if your label is really small, that is a great opportunity to take full advantage of that smart label page so that your customers can find more educational resources on your product. So with a small label, you have very limited product real estate, and you can take advantage of that, full digital space to really speak to your consumers and portray the attributes that you want your consumers to know about your product.
I couldn't agree more, Hannah.
And Anna, what are the requirements around a phone number? So do you have to list a phone number along with that QR code? And does it have to be answered 24 hours a day? There has to be an answering service?
Yes, there does need to be a phone number accompanying the QR code, and it does need to be accessible by consumers 24 hours a day. Label Insight can offer some help. We do have a smart label API, which you can use to help your help desk agents understand what products in your assortment contain bioengineered ingredients and what products do not contain bioengineered ingredients. So I'd be happy to disclose a little more information after the webinar. But yes, that is correct. There does need to be a phone number accompanying the QR code.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And Hannah, how does Label Insight determine what products might have BE ingredients in them?
Oh, Hannah, you are muted.
My bad. Like I mentioned, we're really leveraging our derived attribution to come up with that knowledge. So we're taking that USDA list of foods that potentially contain bioengineered ingredients, like I mentioned, canola, squash, and our subject matter team experts are leveraging the derived attribution to scan the ingredient statement for those ingredients to determine that.
Thanks, Hannah. Anna, is there any chance you think that the deadline will be extended?
It really isn't looking like that, like the deadline's going to get extended, Lauren. I know, several trade organizations have petitioned the USDA to try and get that extension, due to things like, unclear directions within the original bill text, as well as, obviously CPG manufacturers have had to spend a lot of time, making sure that our food supply is robust during this COVID time period. But despite industry pushback, the USDA has been standing pretty firm on the fact that they believe that manufacturers have had ample time to comply with the regulations. So as far as we know, January 1st, 2022 is where it's at.
A couple for you, Hannah, specifically around allergens. So how does the FDA enforce allergen regulations? And what types of products are required allergens to be labeled on?
Yeah, so the FDA really provides guidance to the food industry and consumers on, I guess, best ways to assess and manage allergen hazards in foods. So what they do is conduct inspections and sampling to check that major food allergens are both properly labeled on packages, as well as determine that the facilities have implemented like proper controls to prevent that like cross-contamination that could potentially infect different products with those allergens. And then also making sure that the allergens are, there's never any like undisclosed allergens on during the manufacturing or the packaging. So when problems are found, the FDA is able to work with products to recall these products and provide public notification to, alert the consumers immediately. And they also have the authority to seize or remove any products from the marketplace or refuse entry of different imported products. And then for the second question, what foods are the allergens required to be labeled on? So the FDA does enforce this labeling regulation on most packaged food products. This includes dietary supplements, but does not include like meat, poultry, and egg products that are regulated by the USDA. It also does not include alcoholic beverages that are subject to the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau labeling regulations, as well as like raw agricultural commodities, drugs, cosmetics, and most foods sold at retailers that do not have like a prepackaged label.
Thanks, Hannah. Anna, I'm going to bring it back to you for a couple more BE specific questions. So on pack BE symbol, is there any regulation about the size of that symbol? I know we talked about size of QR, but what about the size of the actual BE symbol itself?
That is an excellent question, Lauren. I do not have that detail off the top of my head, but we can certainly, that is probably included in the bill, and we can certainly get back to that question after. Yeah, my apologies.
Great. And then there's some questions about smart label pages in general, and if brands need to be members of the CBA in order to take advantage of smart label pages.
Yeah, a brand does not have to be a CBA member. Any manufacturer is welcome to participate in the Smart Label initiative. However, you do have to submit your Smart Label pages to the CBA for inclusion on smartlabel.org, which is the website that houses all the Smart Label pages. And there is a fee associated with having pages up on smartlabel.org, and it is slightly higher for non-members, but it is a very small fee. But yes, members and non-members are both welcome to participate.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. And thank you both again for this conversation. So great. Thanks to everyone for joining. If you do have any additional questions that come up, feel free to email us anytime. Again, marketing@labelinsight.com. Thanks for joining, and you'll get the recording within 24 hours. Have a great day.
Thanks, Lauren.
Bye.
Thank you.